I'd like to share with you some thoughts on the Haggadah, some ideas that you can share with those that you're with at your Seder, and hopefully these are meaningful and inspirational. We begin with the introduction to the Haggadah from the Netziv, Rav Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, and the Haggadah called Imre Shefer. And he's going to give us a beautiful, beautiful thought and insight into some of the actions that we do with the Haggadah in the Haggadah. And this will give us an understanding of the structure of the Haggadah Shel Pesach. So he begins here on line number 1 by telling us, Hachanas HaSeder Shel Pesach, the preparation and the Seder itself, Hinhigu Chazal la'asos dugma k'mo shehayu noagim be'eretz Yisrael b'zman achilas haPesach. The Chazal set up, they established for us the Seder of Pesach night to be a dugma, a similar action, an example, a carbon copy, so to speak, of the way that they would have the Seder in Eretz Yisrael at the time of the Beis HaMikdash when they would eat the Karban Pesach. This is a copy, this is an example, and we want to recreate the way that the Karban Pesach was eaten, the way the Jews partook of the Karban Pesach when the Beis HaMikdash stood. And that's the structure of the Haggadah. As we begin our Seder and we say Halach Ma'anya, one of the lines in Halach Ma'anya is Kol Ditzrich, anyone who needs it, anybody who needs to participate, Yesei v'yivsach, let him come and participate and join us in the Karban Pesach. And then he goes on to give a couple of examples, matzah and the afikomen, etc. But we're going to skip down here to line number 16 to get the main idea of what the Netziv is going to suggest and propose to us. The Seder has been constructed the way that it was, as we just said, when the Karban Pesach was eaten. Umizehatam, that's the reason, says the Netziv, notlim liyadayim letibulo b'mashke. That's why the second part of the Seder, immediately after Kiddush, is urchatz. We wash our hands. Why are we about to wash our hands? Well, the reason is because what comes next? Karpas. And what do we do with karpas? Karpas is a vegetable that we will dip in salt water, vinegar, and the halacha tells us that when we're eating any type of fruit or vegetable that, and we're going to make it moist, we're going to put it in any type of a liquid that would make it makabel, that will make it susceptible to tuma, and therefore we need to wash our hands in order to make sure that our hands do not have anything of tuma on them. But we don't have the minhag bizman hazeh to eat b'tahara and to make sure everything that we're eating is not tameh, tahar, etc. That was in the time that the Beis HaMikdash stood, when people were zahir, people were careful about Tum and Tahara. Unfortunately, due to the lack of Beis HaMikdash and the halachas of Tum and Tahara, we are not knowing to do that. So he says, let's see this again. He says, right here, if you look at the Taz in Shulchan Aruch, Tamal zeh, he questions the concept of urchatz, of washing our hands for kapars. Lafi minhagenu, according to our minhag, bizman hazeh, shenoagin lahakel b'tibul b'mashke. When we are mekel, when we don't wash for tibul b'mashke, for dipping things into liquids. Says the Netziv, v'lo kasha midei. It's not a kasha. It's not a question. Why? The Mikol Makam, the Seder, Inigu Kamozman Achilas HaPesach. The Seder is structured in a way that it was the way it was done in the time of the Korban Pesach. And at the time of the Korban Pesach, people would wash when they'd eat tibula b'mashke. And therefore, that's why we wash, because the Seder is structured the way it was during the time of the Beis HaMikdash. Umizatam, he continues here. Noagin lilvosh hakittel. That's the reason that we wear a kittel. Ve'enatam shelo tezuch dato alav yizko yom hamisa. Utamua. He says the reason is not what people think the reason is because, well, we're sitting at our Seder table, we're free, we have the best china, we have the best foods tonight, it's Pesach night, and we have to remember we're mortal, we have to remember the Yom HaMisa. He says that's not the pshat. What's the pshat? He says, Ela hatam dachilas Pesach hu mishulchan gavoa kachil. We're eating from the Ribono Shel Olam's table. We're eating the Korban Pesach. We're eating kachim. Kishitas Rashi v'Rambam. D'chol achilas kachim kalim mishulchan gavoa. When we're eating kachim kalim, we're eating karbanos, so to speak, the Korban Pesach. So we're guests at HaKadosh Baruch Hu's table. Below kishitas atosas beita daf chafalef. Okay, Vim came. If I'm sitting at the Ribono Shel Olam's table, I'm eating karbanos. I'm sharing food that was on the mizbeach. Then I have to eat it with a sense of awe and reverence, like I'm in front of the Ribono Shel Olam, like we're davening. This is, we're guests in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's house, so to speak. Like you're sitting at the king's table. You're not just going to wear any clothes, any type of clothing when you're sitting around having a sandwich, eating lunch. You're sitting at the Ribono Shel Olam's table. You're eating kachim. You're sharing the king's food, so to speak. And when we lived in Yerushalayim during the time of the eating of the Psachim, you would wear special clothes that you would daven in. In other words, you'd appear before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, based on a pasuk in Mishlei, Chatuvos Eitun Mitzrayim. That was a special type of clothed Egyptian linen, so to speak. Ubeged Pishtan Lavan. It was a white garment. It was, it was the tuxedo of the time. It was the formal wear you'd wear at a formal occasion. K'dichsiv vayal beishoso bigdei sheish, as the Torah says, they dressed him with these finest clothing. So when Jews sat at their Seder table eating the Korban Pesach, what do you think they were wearing? They were wearing their formal attire, which was at that time the Beged Pishtan. This white garment symbolized, again, it was the tuxedo of the time. So that's what we wear, because we're reenacting the eating of the Korban Pesach. Mishum hachi lovshin beged pishtan lavan v'hu hakittel. That's why we wear a linen white garment v'hu hakittel. And that's why during the entire meal one has to make it as if he or she is sitting at the king's table. A person could eat shmur matzah the entire meal. It's proper to do that. As the Gemara says in Psachim, where it says b'yom tov rishon, it says that you should eat the shmur matzah yom tov rishon. Perush Rashi sudas leil rishon, not just the matzah of the mitzvah of matzah, but the Suda, because the Suda of the Seder is at the Shulchan Gavoa. It's eating from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's table. Alma Techola Suda Roelios came. Mishum Dafal Gav Sheyotzim B'Gazayis Rishon, even though we fulfill the mitzvah of matzah with the first Gazayis, B'Kol Malcham Kol Zman She'ochlim Areza Mitzvah. We're eating matzah. It's a mitzvah. Every bite of matzah we take, it's a mitzvah. As the Netziv says, he himself writes in his commentary to the Shiltos Hamak Shela, and you could look it up, Ost Nun Gimel, Siman Nun Gimel, Ost Aleph. And that's another reason why, that's another custom that Chazal established, that we're at the Seder. So it's the matzah, it's the kittel, it's tibula b'mashke, umizatam hiskinu Chazal lahafsik b'emtza halal. And that's another reason, another concept which is unique to the Seder. That what do? We interrupt in the middle of Hallel. Hallel normally is said without an interruption. But here we say the first two prakim of Hallel, we have the Suda, and then we finish Hallel. The halach is when one says Hallel, you're not allowed to interrupt. You have to say Hallel without any interruption. You're not allowed to be mafsik. Hainu, why? The mitzvah of the Suda. The Suda itself is the mitzvah. Because we're eating again from Shulchan Gavoa. It's the Korban Pesach. So therefore, the Suda is part of the mitzvah. So it's not an interruption in Hallel. It's one long mitzvah. And we have to appreciate and thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for this. And he says, if you look in the first chapter of Tehillim, everything you do, you'll be successful. And even for our eating and our drinking, we are rewarded because we're doing it as a mitzvah. We're eating, we're drinking, we're celebrating for the mitzvah. And if you look at the end of that chapter in Tehillim, what does it say? Lo chen harisha'im, not like the Risha'im. Ki'im kamotz, because they're like chaff that the wind blows away. She'eina ochel l'sham mitzvah. They're eating because, they're eating because they're hungry, not because they feel it's a mitzvah. V'zeu ki yodea Hashem derech tzadikim, as the parak ends, Hashem knows the ways of the righteous. And the Netziv says, when you see his Haggadah, if you use his Haggadah in Reish Efer, he'll elaborate on this a little more in his commentary to Hallel in the Haggadah. So the takeaway from this magnificent introduction to the Haggadah is the Haggadah is structured in a way that it is like we are sitting at the Shulchan Gavoa, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu's table, and we are recreating Achilas Korban Pesach, which is what we're hoping to be doing much sooner than soon as can be, that we are actually eating the Korban Pesach. But that's the structure of the Haggadah based on the Netziv. Moving along here, Rav Zalman Sorotzkin, in his Haggadah, known as Hashir v'Hashavach, wants to give us an explanation, and again, in another area of the structure of the Haggadah. As you know, the Mishnah tells us in Maseches Psachim that the Haggadah is structured Maschel B'Genus U'Mesayim B'Shevach, that we begin with the negativity and we conclude with praise with the positive part. We start negative, we have to end up on a positive. And there's a machlokes, Rav and Shmuel, what is the Gnus that we start with? So let's see what Rav Sorotzkin tells us. Avodim Hayinu, Beperik Arvei Psachim, we're right here on line 1 at the top. Beperik Arvei Psachim, B'Mishnah Maschel B'Gnus U'Mesayim B'Shevach. Gemara, my Gnus. What's the Gnus? What's the negativity? What's the bad parts that we're going to say about Klal Yisrael? Where is it that we should be somewhat embarrassed? Rav Amar Mitchila Ovdei Avodah Zarah Hayu saying. From that section, that's how we should begin in the negativity, that our ancestors were idol worshippers. Shmuel says, no, that's not the negativity. The negative idea that should be that we should begin the Seder with is Avodim Hayinu Lefaro, that we were Avodim. So we have a Machlokes, Rav and Shmuel. What's the gnus? What's the bad? What's the negativity? Says Rav Saratskin, V'niflam Hein B'divrei Shmuel. He says, I don't understand Shmuel. I mean, yes, we were slaves, but the fact that our ancestors were Ovdei Avodah Zarah, you don't think that that's not something we should be proud of? Being slaves, might not have been up to us. We were enslaved, but the fact that we were Ovdei Avodah Zarah. So I said, I don't understand Shmuel. Lama lo ischem mitchilav Avodah Zarah. Hariyim chlitu rabbeinu maschil b'gnus. If Chazal told us we have a rule that we have to begin with gnus, with the negativity, why? Because then we can see the contrast of what we were to what we are. If you want to look at that contrast between what we were and what we are, idol worship is worse than slavery. The Kadmolite Torah Avosenu Bisman. Not only that, the idol worship predated the Avdus by centuries. What's Shmuel's idea that you don't have to worry about? Don't talk about Avdei Avodah Zarah, Avodah Mayinu. Why is Shmuel neglecting that idea of Mitchila Avdei Avodah Zarah? Says Rav Saratskin, Vim Tomar She'en Lo Shaychus U'Sipurei Mitzrayim. Maybe you're going to say, okay, we're talking about Mitzrayim, and they were slaves in Egypt, and then Avodah Zarah has nothing to do with being slaves in Egypt. No. Yesh v'yesh lo shaychus gdola. Absolutely not. It absolutely does have to do with Yetzias Mitzrayim. It has to do with Mitzrayim. Shari Mataras Yetzias Mitzrayim refreshes Batorah, because the whole goal of Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Torah says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu at their initial meeting on Har Sinai at the Sneh, he said, Votziachas ha'amim Mitzrayim, when you take the Jews out of Egypt, Tavdun es ha'elokim al ha'azeh. Your goal is to worship, to serve Hashem on this mountain. In other words, Kabbalah Satorah. So the entire purpose of Yetzias Mitzrayim is that they shouldn't be Ovdei Avodah Zarah, they should be Avdei Hashem. Hainu, says Rav Saratskin here on line 9, Hainu, hafroshas b'nei Yisrael migilulei Mitzrayim, v'achnasasam tachas kanfei hashchina, v'amaschem. The whole purpose is to separate them from the idols of Egypt and bring them under the wings of the Shechina, v'amaschem mitchila Ovdei Avodah Zarah. And beginning with the words mitchila ovdei, hamascha mitchila ovdei avodah zarah, and by beginning with the phrase mitchila ovdei avodah zarah, va'achshev kervanu amakam lavata. So and now HaKadosh Baruch Hu has brought us closer to service. That's a great answer to the question. Manishtana, why is this night different? You know why? Because before we were Ovdei Avodah Zarah, and now HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought us that we should serve Him. So that is the essence of the night. So why is Shmuel saying Avodim Hayinu? Venira, says Rav Saratskin, such a beautiful thought. Shesvira Leila Shmuel. Shmuel holds, Shahaprisha Megilulei Avodoseinu v'Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shamayim Asinu B'Choach Atzmeinu. He says, the separating from the idols of our ancestors and the Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shamayim and the acceptance of the yoke of heaven, Asinu B'Choach Atzmeinu. We, Klal Yisrael, were able to do that on their own. How do we know that? Sharei Amru. We have a rule. Everyone knows this rule. Hakol b'dei shamayim chutz miyirat shamayim. Our fear of heaven, our religious commitment, so to speak, is our own bechira chavshis. We have free will. Ve'ein zeh nichnas b'tachnis hahalav adol Hashem. That's not under the rubric of we have to thank Hashem for that, because that was our own commitment to do what? To be Ovdei Hashem. As opposed to leaving Egypt. We had nothing to do with that. Listen to what Rav Saratskin says. The commitment we had to be Avdei Hashem was our own decision. It had nothing to do with God. Because Hakol B'dei Shamayim Chutz Mi'Yirah Shamayim. Having Yirah Shamayim is something that's totally on me. It's not on anybody else. Okay? Leaving Egypt had nothing to do with me. I had nothing to do with it. I was a passive participant, so to speak. That he says is Shmuel's reasoning. You have to start Avodah Mayina because that was God. The other thing was me. I'm thanking Hashem for Yetzias Mitzrayim. I'm not thanking him that he brought us closer to him. That was all me. That was my own personal commitment. So if that makes sense, so now how come Rav says, no, you start from the Tchila of the Avodah Zarah? Listen to this. Rav Shita Acheres Bazeh. Rav has another opinion. Hainu. Sha'af al pi Avram hikir ba'atzmo es boro, even though Avram Avinu was the one who, by his own self, on his own, he was able to recognize the fact that there's a creator in the world, and he was able to give over that idea. He was able to inculcate the concept of Amunah in his son Yitzchak, Yaakov, and then Yitzchak was able to give it over to Yaakov. The Gimel Amudei Olam Ela Hishtadu Lahapitza Ba'olam Legayer Gerim, and these three, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, were able to spread that message out, and they were Megaya Gerim. They brought people under Kanfei Ashchina. Lo nishrasha ha'emuna hazos bahem u'vizaram achreim ad olam. Where are those people? Where are they? Where are the ones that Avram brought? Es hanefesh asher asu b'charan. Where are the people that Yitzchak influenced? Where are the people that Yaakov influenced, with the exception of his own children, his own family? The line 20. The lo nishara morasha kehilas Yaakov, and the only ones that are left are what? Are us. Morasha kehilas Yaakov. Ella be'ezras Hashem u'ch'amram zal habol atar mesayinoso. He said that we took the first step. But once we took the first step, Hashem has to help us the rest of the way. The only way that the Amunah that was passed down from Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov is passed on to the generation, so we need Hashem's help to keep us there. That's what he says here. He says that Amunah is only Bezras Hashem. Is only with the help of God. Uka Zal, as Chazal have told us, the Gemara says in Shabbos, Haba l'tar Messianoso. Someone who comes to be Matar himself, Hashem helps him along. You make the first step, God will take you the rest of the way. V'cheinema b'Avram. We see that by Avram. Where do we see that? Listen to this. After Avram Avinu asked, could the world just work on its own? There's no leader? There's no creator? Could that be? HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to him, Anihu Baal Ha'olam. Yeah, I'm the creator. I'm the one who started it. I'm the one who's in charge. He recognized it, but God confirmed it. And Hashem helped him to leave the darkness. And how do we see that? He told him, you know what? Get out of Haran. Get out of Terach's house. Why? Says in the parentheses. Bad influence there. Leave. You need to go somewhere else. Let's go to Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Canaan. Eretz Asher Hashem Elokecha Doresh Tamid Enei Hashem Elokecha Ba. You have to be in Eretz Yisrael because that's the land that you'll be able to grow in your relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Umilvad Kol Eila Karas Imo Brisola, and despite all this, he made a covenant with him, an eternal covenant. Lios l'chal elokim l'zarecha acharecha, that Hashem says, I will be your God for you, for your generations, forever. And that continued for Yitzchak and for Yaakov. The Lula, listen to what Rav Sorotzkin writes here, an unbelievable concept, right here on line 27. The Lule Haya, Hashem Shaya Lanu Lo Ulanu Lazar L'side, and were it not for the fact that Hashem helped him and them, brought us along, let us lean on him. Were it not for the covenant and the agreement and the relationship that he made with us back then, it would be impossible for one person or even a family lishchos neged hazerem, to swim against the tide. Ulahachzik mama b'amunas Hashem, and to hold with the amunah of Hashem, ubeshmiras derech Hashem lasos stako mishpat, and to follow the path to do righteousness and justice. B'toch olam mole shal shchasav alilus, in a world that's immoral, that's filled with destruction and despair and idol worship and immorality and licentiousness and everything, we can't fight the tide were it not for the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there to help us. Halo Tireh, he says, I'm going to prove it to you. Shechanoch, Misushelach, Noach, Shem ve'ever. Go back, the beginning of the Sefer Bereshis. Chanoch, vayishalech Chanoch es Elokim. Chanoch walked with God. Misushelach, Noach, Shem ve'ever, va'od yadu es Elokei emes, va'avduhu. They knew the true God. They worshipped him. V'yafal pikein, lo nisharu b'neihem achrei motei Hashem. But what happened to Chanoch's children? What happened to Misushelach's children? What happened to Noach? Shem ve'ever. So there were individuals, but the fathers, the grandfathers, weren't able to influence the entire generation. Why not? Their children, their descendants after them were not of the Hashem. As we mentioned earlier, those that Avram Avinu influenced, Avram and Sarah, where are they today? Who are they? Because they were all drifted. They were all swallowed up, Bezerah Makloli, in the great wave. They were taken up by the sands of time. Nimtza. We see from this, Shahaprisha, Hagemura Vamuchleta Shalavinu Harishon, the separation, the initial separation of our first patriarch, our first father, Avram Avinu, Me'elilus, Haisarak Bezras Hashem. That was only through the help of Hashem. Avram made the first initial move, but then Hashem dragged him along, brought him along. And that's the pasuk we say in the Haggadah. Me'olam terech avi Avram v'avinacha v'yavdu Elohim achirim v'rekach azabichem as Avram Avar v'elech oso b'chol Eretz Canaan. He says, I took your father Avram from Avar and I brought him to Eretz Canaan. Hare, what's the word that the Haggadah uses, quoting the pasuk in Yoshua? What's the word? Hare shehu yisbarach lokach oso me'aver hanahar. He took him from the other side of the Nahar, from the other side of the river. He made him, he led him to Eretz Canaan. Take him out of that impure land. But it was HaKadosh Baruch Hu did it. Again, Avram made the first move, but Hashem had to help him the rest of the way. And that's what it says in the Haggadah. God has brought us close to his worship. V'chein mavua b'Rambam sham halacha gimel. Look in the Rambam in Hilchos Avodah Zarah, halacha gimel. Sheba Mitzrayim haya ikar sheshasal Avram Avinu nakar. What the Mitzrayim planted, what Avram Avinu planted in Klal Yisrael in Mitzrayim, it was going to be uprooted. V'chozru b'nei Yaakov litos ha'olam v'tiyusam, and Klal Yisrael was going to be again swept up in the immorality of Egypt. Umehavas Hashem asanu, but because HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us, umeshamro es hashvua la'Avram Avinu shalach aleim es Moshe, because Hashem loves us and He wanted to keep the oath, to fulfill the oath that He made to Avram Avinu, shalach aleim es Moshe. He sent Moshe Rabbeinu to ultimately take us out of Mitzrayim. Umemela, therefore, says Rav Sorotzkin in conclusion, we have to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the spiritual redemption before we talk about the physical redemption. So we have a machlokes Rav and Shmuel. Should we say begin the Gnus with Mitchila Ovdei Avodah Zarah? That's Rav's opinion. Or Avodim Hayinu, that is Shmuel's opinion. And so we do both. Rav tells us why he feels it's Mitchila Ovdei Avodah Zarah, as Rav Sorotzkin just explained, and why Shmuel holds it is Avodim Hayinu. Okay, and that's why we do the way we do it, based on the Gdolei Harishonim, that we do Avodim Hayinu, and then we do Mitchila Ovdei Avodah Zarah. Later on in the Haggadah, we have the story of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tarfon, Shloim Mesubim, Bnei Brak, Vayim Mesaprim, Mitzias Mitzrayim, Koloso, Alayla, Chabot, Tamideim, Amru Lahem, Rabbi Seinu, Higia Zman, Kriya Shema Shal Shachas. All familiar with the story. Rav Nevin Sal, Shlita, in his Haggadah known as Yerushalayim B'Moadah, tells us something that I say over every year at our Seder. He says the following. He says, the Haggadah could have just said there was a story with 5 Rabbanim. Why do we have to know who the 5 were who were sitting and telling the story? If you want to tell me the story, that it's important for even the Gedolei Yisrael to tell the story, just say the Roshei HaYeshiva, the heads of the Sanhedrin, however you want to define them, were sitting around the Seder table and they stayed all night to tell the story, and then their Talmidim came and told them it was time for Kriya Shema. Why is it necessary to specify who was sitting around the table? Says Rav Nevensal, the Yeshe Pirshu, and he quotes, says it's Haggadah's Chachmei Yerushalayim, Shenei Rabbi Akiva haya b'mnei Gerim. Says if you look into the pedigree of many of these 5 Rabbanim, you will see that there's something interesting about them. Rabbi Akiva was descendant from converts, whether his father was a convert or his grandfather or great-grandfather, the Mefarshim discuss it, but we know that he was a descendant of converts. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua haya Levian. The Gemara in Sotach Daf Chaf Aleph, Tosfos talks about it there, they were Levian. Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Kohanim. So you have 2 Kohanim, you have 2 Leviim, and you have a descendant of converts. So therefore, line 10, Hayamakom Lomar, Shegerim, Kohanim, Leviim, Einam Chayavim, B'Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. You might think that they'd be exempt. Why? Very simply. Me'achar shelo haya b'shibud Mitzrayim. Because they weren't that enslaved. What does that mean? Shevet Levi kulo lo haya b'shibud. We know that Shevet Levi, they were not enslaved. They were exempt from the slavery. Kemoshe Perish Rashi, as Rashi tells us in Chumash. Vagerim, obviously, Hare lo haya b'chlal Yisrael shenis gairu. The Gerim were not even part of Klal Yisrael until they converted. L'chachish miyanu kan. That's the pshat in the Haggadah here. Shagam hein, these 5 rabbanim, af al af shalom nishtabu mitzrayim, even though their ancestors were not enslaved in Egypt, they still talked all about Yetzias Mitzrayim, because all of Klal Yisrael, whatever your background is, no one's exempt from this mitzvah. And he says it's possible that these weren't the only 5 people, only 5 Tanaim that were at the table. There could have been others in addition. They're not mentioned here. Very interesting. How do we know that these were the only 5 people at the table? Maybe there were others. But these are the ones of the Chiddush. You wouldn't think that they would have to be here because of their backgrounds. Comes along the Haggadah and tells us no, even though logically they might have been exempt, nevertheless, they're chayav to be there anyway. So I'm going to come at it from a different angle. Madua ba talmidehem miyad kisha Allah hashachar v'amar b'seinu yiyaz my kriyash shachris. Why did their students come as soon as the sun rose and say, "Hey, it's time for shachris"? We know so's man kriyash 3 hours into the day. They didn't have to stop them right away. They could have said, you have till 9:30 to daven kriyash shema, to say kriyash shema. You don't have to stop right now. All right, right here. Hayulahamtin milikro kriyashmat shashlish zman kriyashma huat shalosh shos. It's 3 hours. Ba'achshav harehu oskim b'Torah. Now they're learning Torah. Why are you stopping them? They're learning. Let them continue learning. They have still a couple hours to daven kriyashma. Omnam b'pshita shlomar. He says, I want to tell you pshat. The time of Yetzias Mitzrayim was over at the end of the nighttime. Uzman Kriya Shema Heichel, and Zman Kriya Shema now began, even though they're still learning and there's a mitzvah of learning Torah, but the Zman of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim is over, and now it's time for Kriya Shema. And preferably, a person should say Kriya Shema at sunrise. He said, this is the optimal way to do the mitzvah, and you should know that it's now Zman Kriya Shema, it's time to say Shema, and the Zman of the mitzvah is over. He says, I'm going to tell you more. I'm going to tell you a reason, says Reb Nebenzahl, why the Talmidim stopped them. Because Rabbi Eliezer was one of the ones who was sitting there. Oh, go back to the beginning of Maseches Brachos, where in Maseches Brachos it tells us he holds, which is not the way we paskin, but he holds that Kriya Shema should be said at sunrise. And if a person doesn't say it at sunrise, that's it. That's the mitzvah. The mitzvah is at sunrise. We paskin, as we said, to 3 hours. But he holds, no, it has to be done right away. Ve'ein zman od l'zacher, you can't say it later, according to Rebbe Lezer. Sharei techav yavor zmana. It's going to be over soon. You only have a couple of minutes as the sun is rising to say it. That's why the Talmidim came. They came because they wanted to make sure that Rabbi Eliezer sitting at the table would not violate his own opinion of when Kriya Shema should be said. And that's another reason why we know the Talmidim that were there, because Rabbi Eliezer was one of them, and that's why they had to stop them from saying Kriya, from the Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, in order to say Kriya Shema right away, because he held you have to do it at that time. Rav Shechter Shlita in the Sefer that came out last year on his Haggadah has again another beautiful insight, and he's quoting the Rav on this story of Rebbe Lezer. And he says, The Haggadah enumerates two halachas with regard to the mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. First, even great Talmidei Chachamim are obligated in the mitzvah, as we just discussed. And second, whoever speaks about Yetzias Mitzrayim at length is praiseworthy. The Haggadah then brings this anecdote in order to prove these halachic points. The Tanoim in this story gathered together and discussed Yetzias Mitzrayim all night long. These great Talmidei Chachamim would not have wasted their time talking about Yetzias Mitzrayim all night if a mere passing mention of Yetzias Mitzrayim suffices to fulfill the mitzvah. Obviously, it is praiseworthy to tell about Yetzias Mitzrayim with as much elaboration as possible, and even if one is a Torah scholar. In this context, Rav Soloveitchik pointed out the difference that exists between Gaonei Yisrael and men of renown of the nations of the world. We cannot necessarily learn a proper way of life from the actions of judges or professors, presidents or congressmen. There are no grounds to assume that they definitely abide by the law. Their high positions do not always reflect refinement of character or correct practice in their private lives. For us, in contrast, a Gaon must be a tzaddik as well. That is why we can learn halachas from stories about Talmidei Chachamim, because their limud HaTorah brings them to zehirus, heedfulness, then to zrizus, diligence, and then to yiras chet and kedusha, as the Gemara in Avodah Zarah tells us. Our ability to study the practices of Talmidei Chachamim is based on the assumption that they are not only great scholars, but also tzaddikim who are punctilious in mitzvah observance. Therefore, all of their actions are relevant, halacha l'maisa. Indeed, if a Rav is known to violate mitzvahs of the Torah, he forfeits his status as one of the Chachmei HaMesorah. The Gemara says that even if a Rav violates a din d'Rabbanan, such as pasakum, baked bread by non-Jews, bread baked by non-Jews, one is not allowed to repeat halachas in his name, and that also is a Gemara in Avodah Zarah. Because we assume that our scholars are also act in a manner worth emulating, the Gemara advances the principle of Maisa Rav. Practice is greater proof than a formal ruling. Gemara and Shabbos. In order to prove what the din is, the Gemara may cite that a certain Tana or Amora paskin accordingly, but it is even more compelling if he can be demonstrated that the Talmud Chacham himself acted that way. Maisa Rav, what a Talmud Chacham does in practice, is the best proof. In our context, we tell the story about the Tanam who discussed Yetzias Mitzrayim the entire night in order to infer the halacha of Kol Hamarva L'Saper B'Yetzias Mitzrayim Hareza Meshubach. Okay, Dayenu. Dayenu is a very, very fascinating poem, song, and the Malbim has an absolutely phenomenal and magnificent thought about it. And one should really take this Malbim to heart. The Malbim asks a few questions. Basically, he says, I want to understand what the phrase here, Kama Mahalos Tovos Lamokom Aleinu. What does that mean? Mahalos Tovos, what's Mahalos mean? Steps, opportunities. Lamokom, what's that? Hashem, but then it should be, is Lamokom the right way it's said? Aleinu upon us. He's bothered by this whole sentence. And then the song itself, Ilu Hotzionu Mitzrayim Lo Osa B'Mishpatim Dayenu. If Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, but He didn't execute judgments on the Mitzrayim Dayenu, that would have been enough. What do you mean? They're still going to come after us, as they actually did. Ilu, let's go to this one. Ilu He split the sea for us, but He didn't take us through on the dry land. Dayenu, that would have been enough. So we're stuck on the seashore. He didn't take us through. Okay, Barchava, not dry, whatever, be wet, but doesn't make sense. Does that make sense? And this one here, which is cut off at the bottom, Ilu Karavanu Lifnei Arsina V'lo Nasalanas Torah Dayenu. If He would have brought us to Arsinai and didn't give us the Torah, that would have been enough. I mean, give me a break. We said a few minutes ago that the whole purpose of Yetzias Mitzrayim is Tavdunas Halokim Al Harazeh. So what's the pshat here? So the Malbim says, again, it's very worthwhile doing it, and he goes through the entire concept of what it is. Let's start over here on line number 1. He says after the Baal Haggadah goes through the whole story and he darshans the psukim as we've done up till now in the Haggadah. He says line 2, Me'ata yifne al amiras ahala. Now we're gonna turn our focus to saying Hallel. And K'dei lahalev es libenu kodem amiras hallel, laseis bina bilvavenu ad kama mechuyavim anachnu lahallel. And now, once we want to be exhilarated, how much we have to say Hallel. Yaktim lanu hakdama lachsho v'leizol kol hatova sh'asa lanu Hashem. So we have to think all about the greatness and everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has done for us. V'chi gam achas mehena daya. And even one of them, it would be enough just to say Hallel. Maspekes lanu lahodos l'shem Hashem b'mesha yesh b'kochenu. And that alone would have been enough to thank Hashem according to our ability. V'alachas kama v'kama, how much more so? B'kibbutz kol hatovos yachad, everything together. Halo ein shiur gvul el hatoda hara'ir l'sesanu HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's no amount, it's infinitesimal how much we have to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ulefichach, therefore, mechuyavam anachnu lahalo b'chol minei kolos b'shevach sheyitagen liyos. And therefore, we have to laud and exalt and praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the greatest extent that we can, to the best of our ability. U'mesayim, and how do we conclude this introduction to Hallel? V'nomar lefanav Halleluka. Ritzono lomar Hallel. Hamaschel Haluka. This is the introduction to Hallel. Ulefizeh, listen to what he's saying now. Line 10. Min kama malos tovos ad achar lefichach hemshech achadhu umeshula biyachad. It's all one introduction to Hallel. From here and lefichach till we start Hallel, this is the whole introduction to Hallel. Ukavanahu. Shahosif bal Haggadah al Mishnasenu min kama malos ad Rambam Gamliel haya omer kedei sheyargish beyoser tovas hadalaman yetze hamam or lefichach shel achrona yoser mevuah murgash. And this paragraph here is to give us the inspiration and the feeling and the enthusiasm to say Hallel properly. Okay, listen. Ubeir hamila malos. What does the word malos mean? Hu tehilos v'tishbachos. It means praises and exaltations. Where do we see that? Shabbos morning. What do we say? La'alei u'la'kales. To exalt God. Malos. How many exaltations? How many laud? How many praises? How much thanksgiving could we give God? Baal Haggadah b'zeh la'orer osanu. He's coming to awaken us. Ki gam al kol tova v'tova levada, on every step, every goodness, levada aleinu lahotzias ruchenu ulaharik es kochenu b'tehila b'shevach b'eda ad ein koachod. Each and every step we have to continually thank Hashem. Again, how much more so? Everything together. And then he says, now I understand what Dayenu means. Dayenu doesn't mean that would have been enough. He would have brought us to Har Sinai, that would have been enough. If he would have taken us to the edge of the Yam Suf, but not taken us to that would have been enough. No, that's not the right translation. The Malbim says, you know the right translation? That alone would have been sufficient to say thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us till the edge of the sea, and he split it for us. Thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for that. Then he took us through. Oh, wow, we have to thank him for that too. He brought us to Har Sinai. What happened in Har Sinai? Ki'ish echad b'leiv echad. We were united. That alone we say thank you for. Then he gave us the Torah. We have to say thank you for that as well. Each and everything is the ability to say thank you, Hashem. The Omer, let's continue here on line number 22, 23, 24, 25. The Omer, Kama Malos, Kolomer, how much praise. Kama Hodos Alatovos Lamakom Aleinu, Mutal Aleinu Lases Lamakom. How much could we give to Hashem? Ilu Otzionu, Vikibanu Rakatova Azos. If we just got that goodness that he took us out of Mitzrayim. V'lo Asabahem Shvatim. Dayenu, that alone. La'alei L'kales HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ba'odo Kimo with all our might, all our ability, we have to thank Hashem. That's the entire song. It doesn't mean it would have been good enough without Kabbalah Torah. Chas v'shalom. How can you say that? We have to thank Hashem even before we got the Torah. And after we list each things, what happens? We have to thank Hashem all along. Etc. So Dayenu is an unbelievable song. It's the introduction to Hallel, and it's telling us that alone, each one of these steps, the 15 steps, each one of these would have been enough to say thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, Dayenu, that alone would have been sufficient to say thank you and give Hakaras Hatov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Torah T'mima Rav Baruch Halevi Epstein, in his Haggadah known as Baruch Shamar, asks a question which I'm asked often. If you look at the Aseres HaDibros, you see the Eser Makos, you see the Dam Tzvardeya Kinim Arov, and the last one is Makas Bechoros. So he asks a question here, which is an obvious question. Tzarech Beyor, I would need to understand, Loma kol hamakos nikru rak b'shman levad dam tzvadeyav rak b'makas b'choros hosif hamila makas v'lo b'shma atzmi levad b'choros kesignon b'kulam. He says, why isn't it called makas dam, makas tzvadeyav, makas kinim? And here it's makas b'choros. On the other hand, you don't have the word maka, the plague of dam tzvadeyav. You only have it here by b'choros. And if you're not going to use the word maka, then just call this one b'choros. So he answers here on line 3. He says, I can tell you very simply. Atam. Shalamakas b'choros nosevas hamila makas v'lo b'choros levad k'mo kol hamakos. Why? Ya'an ki kol hamakos shemoseim levad yidun ki makoseim. He said each one of them is indicative by the name itself that it was a makkah. Ki b'vadai dam. People don't just say blood. Tzvardeya, frogs. Kinin, lice. Oro, einam kiyam makos. When we say in Mitzrayim there was blood, you have to mean that was something out of the ordinary. Tzvardeya, out of the ordinary. Kinim, out of the ordinary. Below kamo Hashem b'choros. But if we say firstborn, b'choros, hu shem stami. That's stam a word, firstborn. She'ein bo kol remes she'inyano makos. It really doesn't infer that there was an actual plague. That's why you need it, because the name itself, firstborn, Bechoros, doesn't indicate that there was some type of plague, so you have to say Makas. And then he says more. There's a medrash that tells us that an interesting event occurred. Ki acha hasras Moshe b'makas b'chorim, when Moshe Rabbeinu warned Paro that there would be, the firstborn would be killed at midnight, the firstborn who were marked for death immediately said to Paro, let's send the Jews out. You don't want to die. So let them leave. So they would be able to remain alive. But their fathers and those in charge in Mitzrayim did not want to give in to what the Bechorim were asking to let the Jews go. And there was a contentious battle. And there were those, the Bechorim, they took up their arms and they fought with their fathers, with those that were refusing to let the Jews go. The Al-Nikra Kama zu makas bechoros. Kimasha abonim argus avasem zu makalatzma. Makas bechoros is a combination. Makas bechoros was not only the fact that at midnight on Tezvav Nisan the firstborn were killed, but there were multiple types of punishment within Bechoros, that prior to the night of Tezvav Nisan, there were those who were killed because there was a battle, there was a fight between the Bechorim and those that were preventing the Jews from leaving, and they killed them. Makas Bechoros. Makas is multiple plagues. The Da, and you should know, concludes the Torah Tamima, the Baruch Halevi Epstein. Ki al pi ha-medrash hanizkar me'inyan harigas ha-mitzriyim ha'idei b'nei ha'bechorim yispar heitev ha'lashon b'tehillim. That's where we understand the pasuk in Tehillim, which we say every Shabbos and Yom Tov morning, and the long Hodu Lashem Ki Tov, L'make Mitzrayim b'vichoreihem, to smite Egypt with their firstborn. Ve'ein zalashon ragil. He smote the firstborn in Egypt. What's Lamake Mitzrayim Bivachoreim? Egypt was smitten with its firstborn, or by its firstborn. But based on the Medrash, it's very simple. Lamake Mitzrayim Bivachoreim. Al Yedei Bechoreim, through the Bechorim, through the firstborn, Ukamavur, as we explained, Zu Maka La'atzma. This was a Maka in and of itself. There's an interesting machlokes between the Rambam and the Ravid when it comes to charoses and matzah. We all know what charoses is, and we have it on the Seder plate. The Gemara in Psachim discusses what's the purpose of it. It's a machlokes tanoim, whether it's a mitzvah or not a mitzvah to have it. That's a totally different discussion. But there's a fascinating Rambam. The Rambam writes over here in Perich Ches of Halacha of Hilchos Chametz and Matzah, Halacha Ches. Bizman hazeh, in our time, she'ein shem karban acher. We don't have a karban. I'm sorry, I read it wrong. Bizman hazeh she'ein shem karban. We don't have a karban. Achar shem mevarech hamotzi. After we make hamotzi, right? We don't have a karban Pesach. We pick up the matzah. We make hamotzi lechon haaretz. Chozer u'mevarech al achilas matzah. We then say another bracha immediately after hamotzi. It's achilas matzah. U'metabo matzah b'charoses v'ochel. And the Rambam writes, what do you do with the matzah? You dip it in charoses and you eat it. And then he goes on. He says, then we eat the maror, etc. So the Rambam holds that the piece of matzah, the matzah's mitzvah that we eat on the night of the Seder, has to be dipped in charoses. Says the Ravid, in typical Ravid fashion, Chozer mevarech al achilas matzah, u'metabel b'charoses, Omar Avraham, ze hevel. That's ridiculous. Absolutely not. You don't dip the matzah in the charoses. So a machlokes, the Rambam and the Ravid, is, we know that the charoses is used for the maror. Again, what's the reason? It's a machlokes it's a discussion in the Gemara in Psachim. Is it because it's an antidote to the merirus, to the acidity? Is it because there's a mitzvah? Again, that's a different discussion. But be that as it may, when it comes to the matzah, the Rambam says you dip the matzah in the charoses, and the Ravid says you don't. Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank, in his Sefer Mikrei Kodesh, he's the chief rabbi of Yerushalayim, and he died in the mid-1950s. He quotes the Aderes. Who's the Aderes? Rav Eliyahu David Rabinowitz Teumim, who was the father-in-law of Rav Kook. He was a Rav in Panovich, a Rav in Mir. Then he moved to Eretz Yisrael. He then became the assistant of Rav Shmuel Salant. So the Aderes has a very beautiful explanation of this machlokas between the Rambam and the Ravid. So he says here, he quotes the Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank quotes the Rambam, and he quotes the Ravid, and then he says the Aderet said the Pshat. Listen to what he says. Yesh lomar the kavanaso l'mashakazav b'sefer hamanhig. He says the idea is what it says in the Sefer Hamanhig of Mu'avatur, which is quoted in the Tur. The matzah hi zecher l'cheirus. The reason we eat matzah is to remember the cheirus, to remember the freedom, our freedom. The charoses zecher latit, and the charoses comes to recall the brick, the mortar, the slavery. The echis chabru yachad. How can I take the foods which are polar opposites of each other and put them together? In other words, the matzah represents freedom, the charoses represents slavery. How do you put them together? Amar Hagon HaNizkar, he says, the Aderet says the pshat based on the following. Listen to this beautiful insight. The Rambam v'Harayva l'shitasayu asli. The Rambam and the Ravid are going according to their own opinions. B'Hilchos Tshuva. In a different context, a totally different context, there's another machlokes, the Rambam and the Ravid. And what is that machlokes? Shakasav Aram, Tamsha Mitzim Nenshu. Why were the Egyptians actually punished? It's a very famous question. The Hakadosh Baruch Hu told Avram Avinu, and we do say this in the Haggadah, that Yadoa Teda, that you should know that your children will be enslaved in Egypt for 400 years, and they will be oppressed, and then they're going to leave. So basically, the Egyptians were fulfilling the decree of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because God said that the Jews would be enslaved. So the Egyptians were enslaving the Jews, exactly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu ostensibly asked them to do. So how could they be punished if they're doing the Ratzon HaBorei? That's a famous question. So the Rambam writes, Tam Sham Mitzrim Nenshu, why were the Mitzrim punished? Lefisha kol echad ve'echad me'osan hamitzrim hamariim liyisrael hamitzirin v'hamariim liyisrael ilu loratz lahar lahem harshus biyado shelo gazar al ish yadua. Because each and every individual Mitzri had free choice. They couldn't have done it. There was a general gzeira on the Egyptians, but every individual, the Rambam writes, every individual Mitzri had the choice whether he could or should participate or not. Ella, Hodia Shasov, it wasn't decreed on one specific person. We know that the Jews would be enslaved in a land that wasn't theirs, and therefore that was the Gezerah, but not on each individual Egyptian. And since each individual Egyptian did participate, or the ones that did participate, that's why they were punished. The Ravid disagrees with that premise. The Ravid says no. He said, that's not true. If Hashem said they should enslave the Jews, well, guess what? They were enslaving the Jews. So they were doing what Hashem wanted them to do. They were doing exactly what they were told to do. Adarabah hemasu mitzvah. Aval masha nenshuhu al koshe hashibud. You know why they were punished? They were punished because of the severity of the shibud. There was supposed to be slavery, but it didn't have to be so cruel. It didn't have to be so harsh. It didn't have to be so terrible. That's the machlokas between the Ravid. So they weren't punished. The reason the Egyptians were punished is because they went overboard. So now you have a machlokas, the Rambam and the Ravid, why were the Egyptians punished? That being said, says the Aderes, Venira, Das HaRambam, the opinion of the Rambam, the Al-Koshia Shibud Lo Nenshu. So, according to the Rambam, the Egyptians are being punished because each and every individual Egyptian went overboard. Each and every individual Egyptian participated, but not because of the severity of the slavery. The severity is something else. Okay, the Al-Rambam, Al-Koshia Shibud Lo Nenshu, they're not punished because it was so terrible. They're punished because they actually participated. And therefore, the severity, the harshness, so because it was so severe, that was beneficial to the Jews. To the Jews. Why? Supposed to be there 400 years. They were only there 210 years. Why 190 years less? Very simply, because it was much harsher than it should have been. So the harshness of the thing was beneficial to the Jews, not a punishment for the Egyptians. And therefore we're forced to say, the Laharavid, according to the Ravid, who says it was the harshness of the slavery that caused them to be punished, The Yatzu L'cheres Mitam Machem Shamar Chazal. They went out for another reason, not because of the harshness. Hashem said it's time to take them out, but they weren't out because of the harshness of the slavery. That's how they were being punished. That wasn't beneficial to the Jews. Therefore, what the Rambam is saying here in Hilchos Chametz and Matzah is not a problem. The charoses and the matzah go together, because when I eat the matzah, which represents freedom, I have to put the charoses in it too, because I only gained my freedom because of the harshness of the slavery. Because of the slavery itself is what caused us to go out free. And that's why the Rambam holds you put the chametz and the chametz. You put the matzah and the charoses together. Okay? The be'emes charoses umatzah kol echad hu al yidei zecher atit. Hainu shakoshi yashibud hayu l'tovasam sheyatzu l'cheres l'fnei hazman. That was their benefit. They went out in freedom before the time. Aval haravid l'shitasa, but the Ravid, according to his opinion, the logaras charoses l'cherusam. The charoses had nothing to do with their freedom. Charoses represents the slavery, had nothing to do with the freedom. Kasav shezahevel, he rejects out of hand the Rambam's opinion to mix the charoses and the matzah, because one thing has nothing to do with the other. One's the slavery, one's the freedom. You can't put them together. And that's why he says that you put it together. And that's why they have to go together. Beautiful insight into the machlokas, the Rambam and the Ravid. Coming to the end here, the Haggadah Otzrat Torah, which is a compilation of different ideas, we have one thought here from him. He says, "Hanisyonos l'fnei bias HaMashiach," the test that will be before Mashiach. So this is an interesting story I saw, and I thought I would share it with you. Mesupar la Chasam Sofer. It's told about the Chasam Sofer. She'omer b'leil aseidu l'tzetzav b'kol gadol. He would announce to all his those that are sitting around his seder table in a loud voice. It's quoted by his son. Yeladim and echadim shimu heitev. Children, grandchildren, listen carefully. Shnei nisyonos hayu b'mitzrayim lefnei geula. There were two nisyonos, two tests that the Jews had to pass before the geula in Mitzrayim. V'heim yiyu hanisyonos ha'achronim lefnei bias HaMashiach. And just like these were the last two nisyonos that were given over to the Jews, the last two tests, so to speak, that were given over to the Jews in Mitzrayim, they will be the last two tests that will be given over to Klal Yisrael before Mashiach comes. And everyone should remember and give strength that we should be the ones who will be able to withstand these tests, and then we will be Zocha to Gula, who perish. And then the Chasam Sofer elaborated. Nisayan Arishon, the first test, was during darkness, during the Makkah of Choshech. They would see the houses of their enemies with their great opulence and their great riches and their their wealth. Libam bar lives those likachakol liyat. So they were anxious. It was dark. Nobody would know. They wanted to clean them out completely. He owes me for all the hardship he did for me. They had the ability, because it was dark, they could have killed him as well. Why didn't they completely clean them out? They cleaned them out later, but not during Makas Choshech. Why didn't they clean them out? And they cleaned them out because the Egyptians gave it to the Jews. They gave everything to the Jews, but not during Makas Choshech. Why didn't they kill, or why didn't they take all their belongings? Ki ha'aminu, because they believed shesofam latzeis b'chavod or rechush gadol, because they knew there was a promise that ultimately they would go out with kavod and rechush gadol. So during Makas Choshech, they refrained from taking any type of revenge. Line 10, Nisayon Sheni, the second test, Belel Pesach Yiskurim Bateim. something for us to think about. On the night of Pesach, they were locked in their homes. And they heard screams, they heard cries, like nothing that they've ever heard before. From what? Meharigas B'chorim Mitzrayim, from the plague that was all around them. They didn't know where the screams were coming from. Was it from my Jewish next door neighbor? Was it a war happening? Where was the sound coming from? They had to remain in their homes all night. And they trusted, they believed in the words of Moshe, that these cries were from the firstborn of Egypt or from their family members. They didn't run outside. They trusted in Moshe. And because they had the trust in Moshe, and they withstood the desire to do what would have been natural, to go out, to listen to the screams, to go into their houses and take things because of the way they were treated. But they didn't. They withstood that. And not only that, during Makas Choshech, those Jews that Hashem knew would not withstand the Nisayon didn't survive Makas Choshech. As Chazal tell us, 1/5 is one opinion, but 4/5 of Klal Yisrael during Makas Choshech, because they couldn't have withstood the Nisayon. V'chein yeh lifnei bias HaMashiach, says the Chassam Sofer a couple of centuries ago. He says, those are the Nisyonos before Mashiach comes. Think about it. And finally, to conclude, from Rav Yosef Dov Halevi Soloveitchik, the Rav, in his Haggadah that was put out from his thoughts, called the Seder Night, an Exalted Evening, he says, talking about Geula and what it is, again, something for us to put in our minds as we celebrate this Pesach under the circumstances that we're spending it. Uga'olam, God redeemed them. Genuine Geula, genuine redemption always comes suddenly, unexpectedly, at a time when people are ready to give up hope. Sometimes historical situations keep deteriorating. People pray and cry, begging for mercy, but there is no answer to their prayer, only silence. At that moment, when the crisis reaches its maximum and threatens the very existence of the community, when people begin to give up, the Geula suddenly comes and takes them out of the land of affliction. It comes in the middle of the night and knocks on the door when no one expects it, when everybody is skeptical about it, when everybody laughs off the possibility of redemption. And this is what happened in Egypt. The children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry rose up to God by reason of bondage. God did not answer at that moment. And the people had no knowledge that God looked and God knew. When the crisis reached its climax and the Jewish people were on the verge of complete assimilation and disappearance, Moshe came. At the beginning, he was very far from successful. Apparently, the plagues did not convince the Jews that redemption was near. They did not expect divine revelation that night. Indeed, this is the most important feature of Geulas Mitzrayim. The redemption from Egypt consisted not only of the fact that our ancestors went from slavery to freedom, but more importantly, that this redemption and the revelation of the Almighty were surprises to them. This is the nature of Geula. B'Nisan nigalu, u'v'Nisan asidin ligael. Chag kosher v'sameach.